Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to our live stream today. It's Monica and it's noon, so we'll start now. Um, I hope you're having a good weekend. Today's topic is about how to turn a research article into a presentation. And I'll give you a background of why I want to talk about that. Is because um, a lot of times my customers come to me and that's what they have to do. Now, if they're in college, sometimes they're assigned like an article from the peer reviewed literature, like a research article with a study in it. And then they have to turn that into like a PowerPoint presentation and give it in their class just to teach, to learn how to make presentations. Excuse me. But also, what will happen is like I'm a scientist, and when I do my research, I have to present it. Okay, so you can present your own research that way, or you can present somebody else's research that way. Now, this, what I'm going to teach you in this live stream is about how to make an actual, like a research presentation. Now, you can present on a lot of different things. Like if you're on a task force and you guys do some work and you write a report, you maybe present the report. What this particular live stream is geared towards is if you actually have a research study. So whenever we write about research, it's always in the certain format. It's like introduction, and then there's a research aim or a hypothesis at the end of the introduction, or sometimes they call it background. So that's the first part. And then you explain the methods, although in some journals I've seen the methods at the end for some reason. It's normally the second thing. Then you have the results, where you have the graphs and the figures. And then you have the discussion, which maybe has a conclusion at the end. So everything is structured the same way, all throughout science, regardless of the study design, regardless of how long it is, right? Because if you have an abstract, it's little. And if you have like a peer reviewed article, like an abstract is like a summary of what the whole peer reviewed article is about. And the peer reviewed article is only a few pages, but those of you who've done a thesis or a dissertation, those of you who've done that, that's a very long document, but it's the same structure. Oh, and we have somebody visiting us. Thank you in the chat. Viniac, thank you for coming. And Viniac says, very good initiative. Useful to polish the presentation material, make it more interesting to grasp the crux. Actually, you're so right. I'm being very dry about this. I'm going like method, blah 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 blah. But that's actually the whole point. Is people are not going to listen to you if you're boring, right? And research isn't boring. It's very exciting. But presentation, have you been to research center presentations that are boring? Has that ever happened to anybody? Why is that happening? Because research is interesting. So why is the presentation boring? Well, I think the answer is, this is my opinion, is that the balance of background, methods, results, and discussion is off. That balance isn't right. Because we as an audience, what are we excited about? Are we excited about background? No, we're excited about results, right? We want to see, pictures, okay? So, but we aren't going to understand the results unless we have the background. So that's actually kind of leads you into my process, because I'm going to teach you not only like how to take a research article in that framework and turn it into a presentation, but I'm going to sort of tell you the order in which I do it. And it's going to lead to what Viniac pointed out, which is actually like you want people to watch your presentation, your research presentation. You want them to learn. Like whether you're in class, you don't want everybody falling asleep. And of course, if you're presenting your own research at a conference, you want everybody excited about it. So that's what this is about, is how do you even do it, first of all. I'm going to first show you how to do it, and then at the end I'm going to give you like tips and tricks of actually making it good. Okay. So first, I before I go too far, I want to start by just going over our my example article. So you know how, like, if you are affiliated with a company, you always want to show their brand. Well, I have a friend and I love her research. So I picked articles she wrote. I didn't write it. I know I think I helped her review it or something. I helped her with something on it. So I know a little bit about it, but I didn't write it. It's all her research. But the reason why I picked it is, well, first of all, it's a qualitative study, but what I'm going to teach you, you can use for quantitative, any study, any research thing, any, as long as it's in that structure. But the second thing is I know she is a good writer, and I know this is a well written article. I run into problems applying this process I'm going to teach you if I'm helping a customer who is a student and was assigned to do an article and the article is terrible. Like, for example, certain things are supposed to be in the results, certain things are supposed to be in the methods. If they're not there, then how do you present it, right? And so people often ask me, well, Monica, you're saying this peer reviewed article is, like crappy, like it's missing stuff and it's bad. And I'm like, yeah, it's bad. And the reason why some peer reviewed articles are bad is because the people reviewing them don't know that they're bad. And so they don't know to fix them. How can you know everything? And so I don't have a lot of faith in our peer reviewed art. Like, you just have to be smart. That's my opinion. And so I'm teaching you how to be smart, and that is to read my friend's article. So let's look at her article. Just see here. What am I doing wrong? I'm using this. Here we go. Um, where is her article that I opened? Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to start by just quickly looking at the article and just pointing out some things about it, just sort of like curating it a little bit, because there are some things that should be in every research article that you should look for before you make a presentation about it. And if you write the article, you should have this information, all right? So, first of all, you should be able to see the title. Here's the title: Diversity and Inclusion or Tokens, a qualitative study of Black women academic nurse leaders in the United States. And then you should see the authors, which you do, and you should know when it's published. This is brand new research. Then you're going to have an abstract. And one of the things I've noticed is sometimes the abstract is super clear and the article is not, or vice versa. Sometimes the abstract doesn't match the article. A whole bunch of car accidents can happen between abstract and article, right? I picked a good article, so you'll see that this abstract does a really good job of summarizing this article. And if our abstract does a good job of summarizing an article, there's two kinds of abstract, or two structures. There's it's called structured and unstructured. And all that means is, structured means is where you actually say like a title like intro, and then methods, or like background and then methods and then results. And in this one it's unstructured because this is APA format, because this is in the nursing literature. So they don't have that. You just have to imagine, like you can see here methods and stuff, and you can see results. um and so this abstract sometimes can help you when you're getting ready for your presentation, making a presentation, but mainly only can help you with understanding the article. You're really going to have the whole article and look through the whole article, because depending on how long your presentation is, you're going to have to use stuff from the actual article. And you know if you're presenting at like a scientific conference, sometimes your presentation's only 5 minutes. Okay. So it probably isn't going to be much longer than the abstract, but it is going to include stuff that's not in there. So you really need the whole thing. And it's nice if you can get the PDF. So you really do need to look through the whole thing. And actually, it's harder to make shorter presentations than longer ones. So if you're getting ready to make a 5 minute presentation of an article like this, then you really want to get to know the article first, because you're going to have to be very picky and choosy of what you actually put in the presentation. All right, so we have the title, we have the authors, we know where it's from, we've got that, we've got this abstract. Okay, and then I just sort of look for, we know background is going to be here, so I look for how long is this background and what's in it. What are the sub headings in it? So here's the beginning of the background. So our first subheading is conceptual framework. Okay, so let's say sometimes I'm helping a customer prepare a presentation that's going to be like 20 or 30 minutes, and sometimes it's only going to be 5 minutes. When we're talking 20 or 30 minutes, like when I see this conceptual framework, I'd think, oh, maybe we can like I usually try to put diagrams or like visual things in presentations. I don't know if there's a visual conceptual framework, but I would try to make some visual slide for a conceptual framework if we had the luxury of time. But if we don't have, if this is a 5-minute presentation, maybe we won't have conceptual framework. Okay. But I know because it's a subheading, I know that there's plenty on it. Okay, so it looks like in this article, there's a whole section of a background where that has more of like this factual, evidence based stuff, and then there's a section on the section on the conceptual framework. Okay, so remember our 4 sections basically is the background, methods, results, discussion. Well, this is all we get for that first part to choose from. Okay, now we're going to move on to our methods. Well, we see the subheading research design, and we know we're going to have to explain that. So that's nice. It's there. There's sampling. Um, this is a qualitative study, so I'm not sure if sampling is that important if you have a short presentation. If it was quantitative, you probably would need to include it. Then you have data collection and analysis. Um, I remember actually when she was now it's coming back to me. When she was publishing this, the journal was really interested in the quality quality, like the level of quality of the data analysis. Like they wanted her to write all this extra stuff. But I didn't think it was very interesting to be honest. I don't know why the journal wanted that. Because even I mostly she's a qualitative researcher mostly. I'm a quantitative researcher, and we have to write the same things. I'm a data scientist, but usually it's not going to take like a bunch of paragraphs. So I don't know. Every journal's different. But in any case, we are. I'll tell you, we are going to want to explain to the people in the audience, you know, the qualitative nature of this. Like, who did she interview? Those of you who do qualitative research know, is it a focus group? Are they alone? What's your framework you use? And, those kind of things. So we know that we're going to have to put that stuff on the slide. All right. Here's results. Now, as soon as we get to results, I start thinking, remember, a picture's worth 1,000 words and we're making a presentation. So there should be pictures in the results. There should be tables. Like here's a table we see. Um, I always argue with her. I say this is a mixed methods study, and she says the journal says it's not mixed methods. But there's quantitative data here. So regardless of whether it's a mixed methods study or not, there's a table here, and we could put this data from this table on the slide. But as you can see, the table's sort of long. So I would not, and do we really need all of this? We might just choose some of this information to put on the slide. It depends on sort of how we want to spin this and how long it is. That's one thing. And so we've got thematic results, which is what you usually get themes out of qualitative studies. And you see these subheadings, which are her themes. And I kind of helped her with this. I remember helping her with this. This is like a framework of her themes, and I like these. Part of the reason why I wanted to help her with this is I like them for presentations. Exactly what I'm showing you right now. Um, as a qualitative researcher, you can express the themes you have any way you want. But hers were sort of hierarchical. There were 4 main themes, and 2 of them had these sub themes. And it was just easier to put it in a diagram. So this is something that I would really want to put for sure. This is going on the slide. I mean, this is the main results. So when you're thinking of quantitative research, you might have to be more picky and choosy. Like if they put a whole bunch of figures and tables, you're going to have to just pick whatever you think. Gets to the interesting part. Whatever you think tells the story the best. And just those, because remember, you're talking, you can fill in the rest. Okay, so these are the results. So we've got a lot of rich results. We've got a lot of, and I encourage you to read this article because there's a lot of really interesting quotes in here about. She interviewed Black nurse faculty as a title, nursing faculty leaders. I think I can't remember administrators. I can't remember. She does a lot of research. Um, okay, and she puts like her teams put direct quotes in there. It's very interesting what they say. It's so hard to choose what to put in. You can't make these articles too long, and so it's difficult. She has so much research. All right, then we get to the discussion, And what's going to happen is they're going to pull together in the discussion, the authors, what to think about the results. And so again, now we're thinking again, we're blocking it out, our background methods. Results are going to be these pictures, mostly this tables and figures, and discussion is going to be sort of the punchline, like what do we do about all this. Now sometimes there'll be like, maybe like here, this is nursing, so there's a subheading, implications for nursing education. You kind of have to think of your audience, right? So if I was presenting this, like, I'm a public health person, if I was ever presenting this, I would probably be doing it to public health people, and I'd be saying racism and nursing education, blah, 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 right? So I might have a section that says implications for public health. So you just have to think about what is your spin, what is your audience, as to what to pick and choose from there to put in. But uh, if you were presenting to nursing leaders, then obviously nursing education would probably end. And then here we have a conclusion at the end. And so now I kind of see the lay of the land with this. And also, I'll just tell you what I teach my customers to do is there's always a methods section in all of these. So I try to teach my customers to put their research aim as the last question before the methods, just because it's good practices. Ketchy did it here, and her team did it here. That also then teach my customers to, like, she put it as a research question, it's good, is to just skip ahead and pretend to answer it, or essentially answer it with the first line of the discussion, right? Um, I don't know if it's kind of like the third one looks more like the answer here, but you don't have to be perfect about this. But the person should be able to find the research aim or the question at the end of the introduction and background before the methods, and be able to find the answer at the beginning of the discussion after the results. And that's going to be sort of the crux of how we make this presentation. All right. And you can go to that link and follow along with me. So I'm going to come back here and see if anybody's got any questions. No, I guess I don't. Okay. Now in my next section, I'm going to start talking about PowerPoint, which is the software where we're going to use to make the presentation. So I opened a blank PowerPoint, and I'm going to share my screen and go to the blank PowerPoint. Here it is. Okay. Now, I have a friend who uses a Mac, and she makes gorgeous presentations in Keynote. But the reason why I advocate for PowerPoint, I'm not from Microsoft or anything. It's just easier to it's easier, it's more interoperable. It's easier to turn it into other things and make it useful on other computers. And also, I hate to admit it because I'm always hate to, say good things about Microsoft, but I think it's a really good program. I've been using PowerPoint since literally the 90s, when you would have to go to like a Photoshop and have slides made. Like, I was doing that. Like, that's how I actually started as a scientist, as I was working as a research secretary. And I had to use PowerPoint. I was using a Macintosh back then. And you can use a Macintosh now with PowerPoint. I mean, it's kind of an amazing program. And I would have to make these research slides, and then I'd have to make them be like, I'd take this file on a floppy disk to this printing place that made like printed photos, and they would print these slides that they'd put in this carousel and then show. Um, but and so I know a lot about PowerPoint, and I think it's a really good program, and I think you should use it to make your presentations. Unfortunately, the one bad thing about PowerPoint is it's very easy to hack and put viruses in it. So therefore, I can't actually post a PowerPoint file on my blog or on GitHub or anything. So you can download this when I'm done. But I can save it as like a PDF so you can see, because I'm going to make it in front of you here. I'm going to do my best. I'm probably not going to be able to make um, the whole presentation of Ketchy's paper, because I don't really have any parameters. I'm not saying it's 20 minutes or it's 5 minutes. I don't have any audience or anything. But I do want to make this available. So if you are watching this, you can download it. All right. Um, but first, I just want to show you some things about PowerPoint. So this is what happens when I open a blank when it's not saved as anything. But I'm gonna save it here. Let me save it so I don't not lose it. Right. Let's see. I'm gonna so save as and call it um beginning of presentation. Okay. Now I want you to realize some things about this. I just it's just blank and this is the way it is. Um it opens and there's a slide here that you can see already, and if you go to layout, you'll see that it's chosen title slide. So there are these canned layouts that you can have, and they're sort of shown here. And let me see if you can see. No, you can't really see on my screen that I'm if you choose layout, um you will see that there's all these different layouts. And you'll see that they have different names. Like in the one I tend to use, I'm telling you the names is title and content, to content, and comparison. Okay? And this is just title. And so one of the things you'll be wanting to think about is every time you make a new slide, you want to choose a layout that just makes it easy for you. Then the next thing you'll notice is that there's already a font here. Like if I click on the font, you can look up here and see what the font is. And I don't like Calibri. I don't like that. And in fact, you'll see that it's very boring. The slide is very boring. So one thing you can do before you even start going is you can configure PowerPoint so that all of your slides are going to follow a certain trend. Now, um like a format or certain font or whatever. Now, sometimes people say, "Oh, my school gave me a template." Well, that template just is, stuff on a slide. It's not really configured. I'll show you how to configure it. Behind every slide presentation is a thing called the master. And if you go under, see all of these, if you go under view, you can see normal is what we're looking at. But if you go all the way over here to slide master, you can see this thing that looks like, let me see how it looks on my, yeah, you can see this thing that looks like a presentation with a whole bunch of slides. You want to go up to the top. See how this is like the Uber slide and all these are under it? This is a template behind your presentation. So anything you change here is going to change whenever you make even a new slide. So let's say that I want this to be like Arial black because I always use, see that? Now all of them you see it's cascaded. Let's say I want this one to be Arial. I generally want these things to be like just Arial, and I like to make it at least 24 point because otherwise you can't really see it. Okay, so you'll see that this is open here because we're in the master. We're not in any particular slide. And I went to the top, so this is cascading down. So if I go back here, okay, where are we? Oh, here. If I go back here to slide master, I don't know how I got that. I have to go to close master view. You'll see this was affected, but it's hard to tell like what happened, right? But you can see if I make a new slide, let's make a new title and content slide. See, it's all Arial. So if you go into the master and you change colors or you do things like that, that's when you're really making some sort of template, right? And sometimes schools do that and sometimes they don't. They just give you stuff and who knows what it is. So there's that. And then the other things you can do is you can go to the design tab. This is when you're not in the masters. You can choose a design, but that's going to trump anything you did to the master. So let's just not do that. One thing I like to do, I like to make my own master, right? Like you can go back into it's under view. You can go to slide master and I don't know. Let's see. Format background. Let's go put let's go add picture fill. I'm going to insert a picture from one of my libraries here. Um, just something that's sort of a background here. I'll find. How about? Oh, what is this topic about? Here we go. Okay, so I guess we could say apply to all here. Okay, and now we can close master view. So now I've basically created my own, template with a background. Okay, so let's say that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Um, Another thing, well, I could do is I can go to design. What's kind of nice is if you go over here and you choose a color palette. Let's see here. It's under here. You click colors and you choose a color palette. I made my own. I made my own called variety here. You can do that under customize colors. So I'm going to choose variety. And see that changes, the colors that are going to be like here available for you. See how bright they are? I don't know, this might get to be a little crazy looking, but that's the fun of it, right? Okay. So, any questions so far? No. All right. So now I'm going to go and start talking about what I'm no longer in the master. I've just got this title slide and I've got this slide and what do I do next? Well, now um I'm going to just not share my screen for a second and just talk to you. So now is when you start deciding how what is actually going to go in here. You're going to have the intro, methods, results, and discussion. If you pick out any references that you need to cite, like that are kind of important, like you'll notice that there's a theoretical underpinning for this conceptual framework of critical race theory. So there might be some landmark work on that that is pertains to this that goes in the references. Well, then maybe we'll have a reference slide with just a few references on it. And we'll just cite them when we come up to them in the presentation, but not the whole thing, not all the references. So that'll be maybe our last slide. And probably we'll have a conclusion slide. So maybe we'll have a slide for conclusion. But one of the things is you're going to have to really think about is how long is the presentation when you're delivering. So let's say that the presentation is 30 minutes. That's a long time. A lot of times people think that you're going to have a lot of slides then, but it's actually not that logical if you think about it. Because slides communicate visually. So they communicate a lot. Like if you look at that theme, that figure from Ketchy's article, you'll realize that communicates a lot, not just the themes, but the hierarchy, like how they're related to each other. So the shorter time you have to present, the more your slides have to do the work of communication. So you may actually have more slides that you spend less time on and that you say less about when you have a shorter presentation. So when like learners or customers come to me and they're like, Monica, I have to do the short presentation, only a few slides. I'm like, okay, short presentation and only a few slides are not the same thing. Short presentation means it doesn't take that long, but you'll probably need a bunch of slides, you know. And I'm sure those of you in business, especially, have seen people with very few slides talk easily for an hour. So it's really more about before you make the slide presentation, ask yourself, how long do you want to talk, and what who are you talking to? Like, what do you want to get through to these people in the audience? Because this is a research study who, you can present whatever you want from the methods, from the results. And if you're a nurse leader and you're trying to deal with racism in nursing education, and because you're trying to make improve policy, you might present it in a different way than if you're a student and you're thinking about studying racism in nursing education as part of your dissertation. Maybe you're getting ready to write a proposal. So, like, you might put a different angle on it, you might have a different length of it. But in general, what I say is this: if all you're doing is presenting this research study, think about it this way: you have intro, methods, results, and discussion. And everybody really wants to hear the results and the discussion. So you probably want to think of how long you're going to take, split it in half, and make sure the results and the discussion get fully covered in the second half. And if you think you don't have enough time for them, skimp on the beginning part. You want to make sure you have enough time to get your results and discussion out. This is especially true if you have a 5-minute presentation. You just start by making the slides for the results and the discussion, because that's what you have to communicate. And then with the time that you have over, you just shove in what you need to communicate about the intro and the methods and the research aim in order to set up the results and the discussion. And so that's how I think about it. So I'm going to sort of show you now the next step, which is so what I've done is I've selected the research article, I've read through it, I've looked at it to see what I think I might want to present. I've decided who my audience is and how long it is, but I'm not picking that for you. You get to pick that for yourself. And I've configured PowerPoint. Now I'm going to go and block out the presentation. So let's share the screen and go back to PowerPoint. Okay, so I know I'm going to have a title slide here. So just for now, I'm going to say title. I'll fill in later. Then I always start with an outline slide. I call it outline. You can call it agenda. It's basically going to have our introduction, methods, results, discussion. Now, I might do something special like public health implications. Remember how I said maybe I want to cover that? You know what I mean? And actually, to be honest with you, I normally make this a two content one, and then I'll put like a picture here. Let's go get a picture. Oh, I think I have a one okay. So it's just some picture of whatever, right? Nursing. Okay. Now I'm going to make a new slide. And what is the slide going to say? Well, it's going to say background, right? Because I know I need a background. And then I'm going to make a new slide. And what it's going to say is research aim. And actually, remember I showed you where Ketchy put the research aim? I'm going to go over to, you can't see me doing this, but I'm going over to the PDF. And I'm just going to copy the words out. I mean, I'm going to want to not plagiarize it, but I can go back and sort of set it up and or say that it's quoted or whatever. But here is I'm going to paste special here. Therefore, see, it does this. You got to kind of and I may replace this all. This is just my first pass. This is me blocking out um this presentation before making it. Okay, because if it's going to take me if I have a longer time, I might put a lot in the background, maybe even some pictures or whatever. Um, but I don't know. I know I need a space for it, and I know I need my research aim. Actually, it doesn't make sense to do that. you know, and I probably should rewrite it or quote it or whatever, but I'm going to just leave it that way. And of course, I haven't even named it yet. I haven't put anything in there. Okay, so then my next one's going to be it's going to be the methods, right? And then I'm going to have the results. And usually there's a beginning slide with the results where you explain the study design, you explain what's going on. And then my next slides and the results are whatever I'm going to do from the tables. I could go up here. I'm going to go get her table. Remember how I showed you that table of um the demographics here? So I'm going to just print screen these out. Let's see here. So I'm going to see how this is great. You can also make this like a new table, whoops, in PowerPoint. But I haven't had a lot of luck with that. Like I end up fighting with PowerPoint a lot. Let's see here. Okay, so this is table one. I didn't get all the demographics in there. I just got through the first three questions. Let me see if I can. Yeah, let's see if I can get the second part of the table. So you get a little creative, or you don't have to do this. I'm on a live stream doing a hackathon in front of you, so I'm doing it this way. But you could just pick out which ones you wanted to present. Maybe you can't present all of them, and just retype them on the slide. I'm doing this kind of crappy version of it, but so this is I guess quantitative results, and uh whoops, I didn't mean that. I meant this one. And then thematic. Remember that pretty picture? We're gonna go get that here. Print screen. So I'm gonna get that out of there. Here we go, and then I'm just gonna crop it. All right, and realize I'm just making the PowerPoint. Like you're gonna have to practice it, practice the presentation, and you may change it when you're practicing it. But this is just to get you off to the right start, to put the right things in it. Okay, so this is pretty much what you get for results is you get to say some stuff and you get to talk about the pictures, right? Um, you may like if you were presenting this and I could kind of imagine maybe we would have some quotes, right? Um, quotes from the interviewees. Remember how I was saying that? Um, it just depends. So I'm going to imagine we have that. Then I'm going to have what's next is we have discussion. And usually I also put a conclusion. It depends on the time. Conclusion. And the conclusion, like you don't have to spend much time on each slide. The conclusion can just be one sentence and you're done. And then I've got this last one, which is references. Okay. Now, one of the things I'm going to go back here and say, remember methods. Let's say that we wanted to talk about the conceptual framework. I'm going to make a slide for that just because it was in there. Conceptual framework. Now I'm going to go look under conceptual framework in the article. I just want to see what it says. Um, it says here, oh, um, okay. I'm actually copying directly. I'm plagiarizing. Haha. Hello. Sorry, Ketchy. Okay. This is me plagiarizing what Ketchy wrote and her team. But I'm not going to leave it plagiarized. I just wanted to show you this sentence. Okay. It says, this study used critical race theory CRT as a framework. Parker and Villalpando, 2007, page 525, 21. Articulated the key aspects of CRT as being, now these are key aspects. So I'm gonna do this right. I'm gonna say an acknowledgement of the centrality of race and racism, a challenge to the dominant ideology, a commitment to social justice and praxis, a centering of experiential knowledge, and an approach. Let's see here, and I'm probably and right. An approach that honors historical context and promotes interdisciplinary perspectives. So we could kind of stop, say this here. Consider critical race theory, CRT, and then this is Parker and Villalpando as described by, oh no, CRT, or maybe there's a better way of saying that. Okay, so see Parker and Villalpando. See how I've got this little reference in here? Well, because I'm mentioning them, I need to go back here and put them in here. And in fact, let me just do that. I'll just steal it, copy it from Catchy's article. Parker, right? I'm looking for Parker. Yeah, here's Parker and Villalpando. Uh, okay. So if you're doing APA formats, you have to edit everything. Um, and you have to kind of pay attention because I think this is supposed to be italicized. Now you see this is P, so if I add anybody, like don't put a lot of references in. And by the way, you can make them really small. You can make them 12 or 14 because most of the time people just uh they download the slides. Oh, and I want to show you something here. Under paragraph, like if you've got this and you can go under this paragraph here, you can do the spacing before and after. If you add these spacing before and after, it's different from line spacing. Like if you have single line spacing, the lines are right next to each other. But I often will do this thing where I have 6 here and 6 here. So let's just pretend that I have another reference, which I'll just put after that. I'll just put another copy. See how there's a little space in between? So that's cool to do. Like it just makes your references kind of neat. Now, I haven't seen if there's any questions. Oh, there's no questions. Okay, good. Um, okay, so let me save this. All right. So what have we done so far? Well, I've kind of blocked this out. Now I can start filling this in. So this is kind of like a coloring book I've made that I can start filling in it. Now, if I have a lot of time that I can present, I can spend more. I can add more background before we get to the researching. Okay. If I don't, well, I do need to, and actually, I wouldn't even start with the background. I would start with the results. I would start with trying to figure out how much I get to say in the results. Um, Obviously, we have to talk about how many people, like, she had a section on sampling, so probably sampling is important. So maybe we need to talk about the sampling. I mean, you don't have to, you can put in the methods or you could mention the results, how it happened. So you have to make those decisions. And then like these quotes, I put this in here, what quotes do we want to include from the actual article? Well, it's going to depend on how much time we have and really what am I trying to uh what do I want the audience to understand from this article? you know the research is the research, but if you're presenting it, you don't get to say the whole thing. you know the co-authors, they got to say what they said in the peer-reviewed article. If you're presenting it, you're saying less. Like, let me give you a parallel. Back when I was like being a research secretary, I was going to my undergraduate and I was studying journalism, and it was pointed out to me that the news is the same whether it's in the newspaper and you're reading it versus it's on the TV or radio, but especially the TV. But still, when you think about if you spend like a minute reading the newspaper, how much more information you get than if you spend a minute watching TV of the same news, even though there's a person talking and there's visuals. You can just get more information from reading. You just go faster. Maybe it's more boring, but it goes faster. So there's no way I can take what Ketchy said in that article and turn it into a presentation and do justice, like do every, for her and her co-authors, like get the whole thing out there. So I have to choose what am I going to pick from there that aligns with what I want you to know. And that's why starting with using the process I'm talking about, where now I'm here and now the detailed choices about what you summarize and what you put in happen, is because then at the end you're going to have a presentation that the audience hopefully is interested in because you were thinking about them all the way through, but also that communicates what you want them to know. I recently had a person who was seeking a job. um, they said that they had to do a presentation and they sent me a presentation and asked me my opinion about it. And to tell you the truth, I had no idea what the presentation was about. Meaning, I really did not know what this person wanted me to get out of the presentation. Like, I didn't know what the point was. And you don't want people to and leave your presentation and not know why you did it. And if you're presenting research, you have to have a reason, right? So if you're a student and you're like, well, Monica, I'm a dental student, I was just assigned this oral health study to present so the class knows the result. I would say, well, what did you find? Did you find that you have to be careful when you do a certain surgery, or that certain patients are not good candidates for certain treatments, or what is it? Because, make your passion come through. May say, students, fellow students, you have to know the results of this research because, we have to use it in our clinical work. But if the person was a public health student and they were assigned it, I'd be like, well, maybe you want to take the public health tack on it. But in any case, if you use the process I suggest, you should be able to produce a presentation, at least the slides, at least a plan for one that meets with what your um, audience wants to know, and also is just true to the article. Um, it's really important to include um, pictures in your presentation. And I get a lot of my pictures from Pixabay because it's a place where you don't have to do attribution. But you can also use images from Creative Commons places like Wikimedia, where you have to use attribution. Just use attribution; it's no problem. And those people like it because then people come to their Wikimedia page. But in any case, the thing I wanted to say about pictures is I've had more than one story of where I helped a student present their research, like prepare a research presentation. And I told them they had to get pictures. They had to, a few of them. And I even made a space for them. And sometimes my customers like don't do what I say. And I don't like it, but it's kind of nice because then I get to see what happens when people don't follow my advice. And that's one of them that's you should really listen to me because they get it. Like, I remember one of my students who was really good. She didn't listen. She removed the pictures, and her faculty screamed at her, like yelled at her, and she cried to me. And she's not like a crying type. So I didn't forget that. I was like, that's serious. Like that was really jarring that they yelled at her because there were no pictures. That's just weird. Okay. But she should have listened to me. I mean, I only had 4 pictures in there. It was a research presentation, just like this. But the pictures were like, it was an oral health thing. I can't remember what it was, but there were just some pictures to make it look interesting. But it was a really high profile presentation she was giving. Like, there was some visiting faculty or something, and her advisors were just really mad there's no pictures. And so definitely you don't want to overdo it. i'm another I'm another customer. She loves colors and fun. I mean, I do too. Maybe I overdo it sometimes too. But anyway, yeah, some people would think that my background is overdoing it. But in any case, it's really important that um, if you're presenting research, whether it's yours or someone else's, that if somebody bothers to listen to the research or read the slides, at the end, they know they walk away with it from it with some knowledge. Because if they don't, you kind of waste their time, right? All right. Well, so this is what I was here to present. I don't see any questions, so, but if anybody ever has any questions, like if the reason you're hearing this is because you're listening to the recording, go ahead and post a comment, and I'll come back. I'll try to answer all the questions, um, and I'll post this PowerPoint as a PDF. I don't know how helpful that'll be, but it'll sort of remind you of the structure of this. Um, and then, if you got anything out of watching this, then please like this if you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn. I'm broadcasting YouTube and LinkedIn, and and hopefully those of you who watch this and see it got something out of it, and now it's going to be a little easier for you when you sit down with some research and you need to set up a presentation like to get started. All right. Well, those of you who join me, thanks for joining me. It's a beautiful Saturday. It's a beautiful weekend, and I hope you have a great one. And I hope to see you again at my future live streams in the chat. Bye bye.